Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi. Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi. Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya. Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas. Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabir.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabir.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabir.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabir.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi.
Bhutani Taistani Jayoni Karmabi.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Bhavanti Kalena Bhavanti Sarvasya.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tatrahatma Prakrita Vapistitas.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate.
Tasya Gunayatamo Hipadyate. Bhutani, all the bodies of the living entities.
All the bodies of the living entities.
Tai, their own respective. Nityayoni, causing their own bodies. Karma-bhi, by past activities. Bhavati, appear. Kale, in due course of time. Now Bhavanti, disappear. Sarvasya, in all respects. Not. Tatra, there. Ha, indeed. Atma, the soul. Prakritao, within this material world. Api, although. Sthita, situated. Tasya, of her, the material energy. Gunai, by different modes. Anyatama, most different. He, indeed. Bhadyate, is bound. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Every conditioned soul receives a different type of body according to his work, and when the engagement is finished, the body is finished. Although the spirit soul is situated in subtle and gross material bodies in different forms of life, he is not bound by them. for he is always understood to be completely different from the manifest body. Purport. Here it is very plainly explained that God is not responsible for the living entities accepting different types of bodies. One has to accept the body according to the laws of nature and one's own karma. Therefore, the Vedic injunction is that a person engaged in material activities should be given directions by which he can intelligently apply his activities to the service of the Lord to become free from the material bondage of repeated birth and death. Svakarmanatam abhyacharya utim vindati manava. The Lord is always ready to give directions. Indeed, his directions are elaborately given in Bhagavad Gita. If we can take advantage of those directions, then in spite of our being conditioned by the laws of material nature, we shall become free to attain our original constitution. Mam eva hipapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. We should have firm faith that the Lord is supreme, and that if we surrender to him, he will take charge of us. He will take charge of us and indicate how we can get out of material life and return home back to Godhead. Without such surrender, one is obliged to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. Sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a demigod, and so on. Although the body is obtained and lost in due course of time, the spirit soul does not actually mix with the body, but is subjugated by the particular modes of nature with which he is sinfully associated. Spiritual education changes one's consciousness so that one simply carries out the orders of the Supreme Lord and becomes free from the influence of the modes of material nature. Bhutani taisthai nitya karma bir bhavanti kale bhavanti sarvasha natatra hatma prakritava pistitas tashakunaranyatamo hipatyate. Every conditioned soul receives a different type of body according to his work, and when the engagement is finished, the body is finished. Although the spirit soul is situated in subtle and gross material bodies in different forms of life, he is not bound by them, for he is always understood to be completely different from the manifest body. Huma Jnanatimirandasya Jnanjana Salakaya Chakshunmi Chamina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Skal vi snakke på dansk? Or you prefer English? Okay. So, it is said in the Vedas, what is that thing? What is that when the soul is always different, never touched by matter?
Bhagavad Gita?
No, it's short. Krishna. So the soul is never touched by matter. We may think, well, I'm in this body, and I'm influenced by the body and the mind, so how is it that I'm not touched? But that is the function of the mind. It's like the interface. It's just like a computer. There's the computer, we can say, that's like the body, that's the hardware. And the software, that's the mind. And then there is the user. the user of the computer and the software. And so the user is always different from the computer and the software, and similarly the soul inside the body is also always different from the body and the mind. But by this software of the mind, we and the function of the false ego, we think we are this body. And therefore we suffer or enjoy according to the activities of the body. Like I was saying yesterday, this Western religion, just like the Western society is kind of like Prabhupada calls it actually a society of animals. I call it the Coca-Cola culture. So just like in the Coca-Cola culture, they have a Coca-Cola religion. And that is the modern church. It's simply just nonsense. Because they actually give God a bad name. If they say that somebody is born ugly and crippled, and somebody is born very handsome and beautiful and rich and famous, why would God do that? He would create one soul as a dog, even. Of course, they say even in the animals there is no soul. And in Judaism, they even say that if you're not a Jew, you don't have a soul. So these Western religions, they're basically just nonsense. Henry David Thoreau, he's there was a clique or a group of Americans, they were very enamored by the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. And they had a club, it was some time in the 1800s, and they had a club that was called the Transcendentalists. And they were they studied the Bhagavad Gita, and they would have meetings and discussions. Very famous persons like Emerson, what's his full name? Ralph Waldo Emerson, yes, and Henry David Thoreau, very famous poets and philosophers and thinkers, and they have so much praise to heap on the Bhagavad Gita. I have a whole folder on my computer where famous people, they speak in high tones about the praise of the Bhagavad Gita. Hermann Hesse, the American transcendentalist, Aldous Huxley, so many famous thinkers, philosophers down through the ages, they have all been inspired by and praised the Bhagavad Gita. Do you find any one important person with a brain who will praise the Bible? No, you don't. Because it is, of course, there's nothing wrong in the Bible, it's just incomplete. But it does say, but the modern church doesn't even follow the Bible, because in the Bible it says clearly that everything that flies in the air and crawls on the land and swims in the water is a living soul. So, this idea that the church has come up with, that these animals have no soul, is not supported by the Bible. Anyway, we don't care so much for these other religions, because when we have the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have the best religion. Sometimes we meet people on the street and they want to compare, and they say, I remember when I was distributing books, and I would go up to people and I would say, hey, we have this nice book today, and then they would say, oh, we have something much better. And then immediately I knew, oh no, this is a Christian. And then I used to tell them, well, there's no comparison. If you compare the Bible to the Bhagavad Gita, it's like comparing a tricycle to a BMW. There's absolutely no comparison. The Bhagavad Gita is so completely superior. And it's just a matter of making a comparative study. if you study all the scriptures or the three main scriptures of the world, it is easy to see, like if you study the Quran or the Bible and then the Bhagavad Gita, it is easy to see. You just have to think, what would God say? What would God have to say? And even in the Quran and the Bible, there are no words from God. You don't hear God speak. It's only his followers and the later disciples. The only word you hear from God in the Bible is from a burning bush. When Moses he receives the 10 Commandments. Otherwise, there's no word from God in the Bible, and also not in the Quran. So the Bhagavad Gita is the only book in the world where somebody who claims to be God explains in detail about himself and the world and the soul and how everything interrelates. Prabhupada explains in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita that the Bhagavad Gita deals with 5 subject matters. Ishvara, which is Krishna, and the Jiva, which is the soul, and Prakriti, which is nature, and Kala, which is time, and Karma, which is activities. And he says that, so we would expect that if God has something to tell us, he would explain in detail about the world and ourselves and himself and how we relate to each other. And Krishna does that in the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is just like an ABC, a preliminary study of the world. The Srimad Bhagavatam goes into so much more detail. You could actually say, I think it was Hridayananda Maharaj who said that the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas, they're kind of the user manual to the universe. Because when it's just like if you buy a washing machine, then you always get a manual how to use it. Because if you don't know how to use a washing machine, you're bound to ruin it. You won't know what to do. So therefore, the producer of the washing machine, he'll give you a manual so you will know what to do and how to operate this washing machine. So similarly, when Krishna creates the material universe, he also gives a user manual, and that's the Vedas. How to use the universe. Because if we don't know that, we are bound to ruin everything, and that's what is happening nowadays. That it's so obvious that we don't know how to handle and operate nature, and therefore nature reacts against us. Right now nature is actually punishing the human culture. We could see in former cultures, like even the Romans, they were a pretty ignorant bunch of people, completely lusty, into sense gratification. But because they worshipped demigods, they were more in the mode of goodness than nowadays. Nowadays we say, oh, the Romans were primitive and we are very elevated in the modern culture. But the Romans were actually much more elevated than we are, because they were worshipping demigods. In the Bhagavad Gita it says that people in the mode of goodness, they worship demigods, and people in the mode of passion, they worship human beings, and people in the mode of ignorance, they worship ghosts and spirits. So I think it is safe to say that the more something is in the mode of goodness, the longer it will last, because goodness is the maintaining power of the material world. So the Romans, they lasted like 800-900 years. Their culture and their world dominion lasted for 800-900 years. So that means they must do something, they must be somewhat in the mode of goodness to last that long. What to speak of the Egyptians, they lasted for like almost 3,000 years, or 2,000 years. 2,000 or 3,000 years they lasted. So they were very much in the mode of goodness to last that long. But if we say this modern culture that we are a product of, this modern industrial culture, the consumer culture, if we say it started after the World War II, we can say that this modern consumer culture was created by the Americans after World War II. It's not even lasted 100 years yet. And it's already in the process of being dismantled by nature. Nobody thinks it's going to last another 50 years. And of course, because we live in this very special Kali Yuga, is 1 out of 1,000 Kali Yugas where Krishna descends, and we are so lucky to have been born in this Kali Yuga, because otherwise it is very, very unfortunate to be born in Kali Yuga. Very, very bad. Like one time Srila Prabhupada was giving a class in Los Angeles, and he was saying to his disciples, he was saying, just the fact that you have been born in Kali Yuga means that you are very, very, very sinful. He was saying like that. And the disciples, oh. And then of course he went on to explain, so therefore you are very good subjects for being saved by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's the savior of the most fallen. So every time Krishna descends, also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descends, and maybe that's why, because we are in this Kali Yuga where there will be a golden age of 10,000 years, and that started when Mahaprabhu was 500 years ago, when Mahaprabhu was here. So nowadays it can be hard to see, where's the golden age. But Harikesh used to tell us that just the fact, or because there are devotees on the planet, therefore nature has not, this modern culture is still somewhat intact. So